Thousands of protesters have gathered in Paris to call for an end to France's membership in the US-led NATO, chanting, "Let's get out of NATO." The demonstrators also protested against the high costs of living. Ever since the Ukrainian crisis began, causing a severe energy crisis across Europe, anti-NATO sentiments have been rising among Europeans. In France, petrol pumps have been running dry as workers' strike continues in the refineries of the major French oil companies. Earlier this month, Macron criticized the US for selling energy and gas to Europe at 4 times the price the US sells to its industry. As the Ukraine conflict drags on, Europe is propelled to increase its reliance on the US-led NATO and has to sacrifice its economic interests in exchange for security guarantees. Europe seems to have no alternative but to allow the US to continuously impose the cost of the Ukraine conflict onto itself, and its own strategic autonomy has been greatly jeopardized. In particular, the US is relentlessly provoking the escalation of the Ukraine crisis, which has not only weakened Russia but also strengthened the US control over Europe. This has put Europe in greater economic difficulties, as well as on the brink of a more dangerous war. Behind Macron's warning to the US, there are not only great worries about the intensification of future crises, but also helplessness that he cannot control the destiny of France, as well as a strong call for Europe to strengthen unity. Of course, France has its own reasons for playing the role of an anti-US fighter. France has a tradition of great power autonomy. It always has a global perspective, the importance of which cannot be overlooked. Former French President Charles de Gaulle had advocated that France should adhere to an independent foreign policy and should not be completely constrained by the Western camp led by the US. For this reason, France once decided to withdraw from NATO's integrated military command, and it became the first Western major power to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China. Moreover, France has been an advocate for European integration. The rise of Germany's strength as well as the European debt crisis once gave Germany the chance to lead Europe. After former German Chancellor Angela Merkel left politics, it allowed France to try to dominate European internal and foreign policies. In addition, Macron has his own political needs to take care of. Macron has regarded the revival of France as his own responsibility, promoting reforms internally and striving for France's status as a great power externally. In this year's presidential election, he was re-elected but failed to gain an absolute advantage in the parliament. The domestic reform agenda was limited by the obstruction of the opposition. Therefore, Macron needs to make some breakthroughs in European integration and other diplomatic issues in order to strengthen his rule. The contradiction between France and the US, or between Europe and the US, is more of a contradiction in the Western camp and the result of the uneven distribution of power and interests. However, France's disappointment toward the US has a limited impact. It will not change the dominant-subordinate structure between the US and Europe, nor will it deal a fundamental blow to the hegemonic system of the US. It is impossible for France to give up the institutional dividends of the West either. But Macron's dissatisfaction toward the US will more or less bring some variables to transatlantic relations. For example, when the US-EU Trade Technology Council, TTC, meeting is held in December, the two sides will find it more difficult to coordinate with each other. In addition, when Europe and the US have a trade conflict in the field of electric vehicles, Germany will stand on the side of France. It means the deepening differences between France and Germany will be bridged, and Europe will form a tougher stance toward the US. The issues that seem to be problems only between the US and Europe could also add uncertainties to the current increasingly complex relationship among more major powers. France wants what is best for its economy and people. If NATO cannot fulfill that goal, it'd be forced to leave NATO. What would their decision mean for the world and Europe as a whole? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Ensure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications.